Namaskar. Today we come with a very special episode of Dil Se. This is an episode where we will be interacting with students of law from all over the country. We'll be answering their questions. I will try and clarify their doubts. और जितना मज़ा मुझे छात्रों के साथ बात करने का आता है, वार्तालाप करने का आता है, शायद ही किसी और के साथ आता हो। तो आज देखिए आप कैसे सवाल पूछे जाएंगे और कैसे हम छात्रों को जवाब देंगे, so that we get to know as to what the students of this country, students of law of this country are thinking.
Good evening, sir. Namaste. First of all, thank you so much for taking out time from a very busy schedule for taking session with first year, second year, third year law students. The aim of this tour is to have students interact with young minds, have these young minds interact with legal experts such as you.
Students interact with young minds is a good thought.
Of course, while they're interacting with you, they'll learn much more. And of course, while an introduction is not required, just for the record, we have a name synonymous with being an advocate in India. He is indeed one of the
Why don't you ask the questions, because most of the people will know.
Done. So I had a few questions prepared from my end, if we could start off with that. So firstly, I'm a first year law student. I'm currently at GLC Mumbai, Mumbai University. I serve as a senior director in the organization. And my first question was with regards to, there has been so many interpretations of the Constitution these days. And it is an ever evolving thing, our Constitution. But how do you view the current judicial review system in our country? Do you think the judicial activism is too much, or is it at the perfect spot?
There were too many questions in that question. Number one, you say that we have a constitution that is required to be interpreted time and again. Well, constitution is a living document. When I was a young kid, there were no mobile phones. There really was no television at that point in time. I used to listen to the cricket commentary, with my ear close to the radio, right? Now, when you respond to issues that arise at certain times in history, the court's interpretation is in the context of what is happening at that time, right? Today, the times have changed. Nature of education has changed, nature of learning has changed, technology has changed. So when you are interpreting, for example, the freedom of speech, right? Today there are new mediums of freedom of speech, which were not there in the past. So the court has to interpret freedom of speech in that context. So the interpretation of the court in the context of the Constitution evolves with time. So I don't think we should have any problems with that. As far as judicial activism is concerned, what does activism mean? Activism means that the judiciary, in the context of the contemporary world, is interpreting the Constitution, which is forever evolving, right? But judicial activism in the context of doing what the executive should be doing is the question that you are asking. That the judiciary should not perform the work of the executive. But if the executive does not perform its own work, then what does the judiciary do? Right? It'll have to say, look, this is, for example, cleanliness, sanitation. If in a particular area in the city there is no proper sanitation, and people come to court, see, we don't have clean water, we don't have a proper toilet, what does the court do? It asks the authorities, why don't you do this? And if the authority doesn't do it, then it issues a mandate and say, you do it. Now, the moment you do it, you say, but this is my job. The executive says, well, this is my job. Why are you doing this? To which the judiciary says, if you did your job, we wouldn't have to do it. Right? So, by and large, the judiciary is active only when the executive is inactive. The executive calls that judicial activism. But of course, there are some exceptional examples where the judiciary does overreach its responsibilities as a constitutional authority. But those are very exceptional situations.
Right. My second question was with regards to, you talked about how the times have changed so much. There are so many new mediums of communication. So now in today's day and age, there are also digital privacy and second, digital surveillance, especially in the context of the Pegasus software controversy. So how do you view India should balance national security and personal guarantee of a personal right to safety, you know?
Well, nobody disputes the fact that issues of national security, the right to privacy, is in a sense obliterated. When you're talking about the security of the nation, and supposing you have a terrorist organization which is trying to attack us, in that case you can actually, through an order of the Secretary of the Government of India, require surveillance to ensure that our security is not threatened. I don't think there's a problem there. But when you talk about Pegasus, you're assuming that Pegasus is used only for national security. We don't know. In fact, at the moment, Government of India has denied that it's ever used Pegasus. There are a lot of allegations that the government is using and actually looking over our personal activities. May be right, may not be right, but that's now a subject matter that's yet to be investigated. But by and large, the right to privacy has now been through a constitutional judgment of the Supreme Court, regarded as a fundamental right. Now, the question is that somebody, an investigating agency comes and searches your house. They take away your computer, they take away the hard disk, they take away your mobile phone to find out as to whether you've been having conversation with A, B, or C. But in doing that, they are privy to so much more information. The question is, should they access that information or not? Should anybody be allowed to take your hard drive, which has, suppose you're a commercial organization, they will get to know all your customers. Should they be allowed to do that? That's really a matter at large. The court has not yet ruled on it. But I believe that the executive doesn't have the right to access. In other words, you must balance the right to privacy with the right to investigate a particular crime. That, of course, the right to privacy must be protected. But in the context of national security, I think that's an exception.
And my last question was with regards to WhatsApp. जैसे अभी ये खबर आई थी कि WhatsApp भारत छोड़ देगा, पर वो अपनी इंक्रिप्शन सरकार के साथ शेयर नहीं करेंगे. तो ऐसा ही कुछ साल पहले कोका कोला के साथ हुआ था, जब वो अपना फॉर्मूला सरकार के साथ शेयर नहीं करना चाहते थे.
तो वो क्यों करें फॉर्मूला शेयर? आपका अपना फॉर्मूला है, ये तो उनकी अपनी संपत्ति है, तो काहे को शेयर करें? नहीं शेयर करना चाहिए
जी. पर सरकार इस बात पे काफ़ी डटी हुई है कि हमें उनका इंक्रिप्शन, WhatsApp का इंक्रिप्शन चाहिए, नहीं तो वो हमारी नेशनल सिक्योरिटी के लिए, हमारी सेफ्टी के लिए अच्छा नहीं रहेगा.
WhatsApp इसलिए वो कहते हैं चाहिए क्योंकि WhatsApp के मैसेजेस कोई एक्सेस नहीं कर सकता. हाँ, तो वो कहते हैं कि अगर आप एक्सेस कर लोगे तो WhatsApp की अहमियत क्या रहेगी? तो WhatsApp is like any other such digital whatever it is, right? So तो रहेगा नहीं. तो WhatsApp कहता है कि मैंने आपकी हिफाजत के लिए ये किया है. अगर आप नेगोशिएट करना चाहते हो, कोई कमर्शियल कॉन्ट्रैक्ट नेगोशिएट करना चाहते हो, आप नहीं चाहते कि किसी और को पता चले, तो अगर आपको एक्सेस कर सकता है तो फिर हम काहे के लिए यहाँ हैं? तो इसीलिए मैं इस पक्ष में हूँ कि WhatsApp को अपना जो टेक्नोलॉजी है वो एक्सपोज नहीं करना चाहिए और ये शेयर नहीं करना चाहिए. लेकिन वो कहते हैं कि वो ऐसे मामले हैं, कैसे जुडिशरी के खिलाफ कोई जजेस के खिलाफ बोलता है, तो उसके लिए कोई अगर क्रिमिनल कोर्ट कोई फैसला कर दे कि ये इन्फॉर्मेशन आप दीजिए, तो जितनी इन्फॉर्मेशन WhatsApp के पास है उतनी उनको देनी चाहिए. टू दैट एक्सटेंट सही है, बट नॉट अदरवाइज.
So, if I may.
Yes, please.
Thank you so much. Isn't that a little hypocritical of government to ask for the encrypted conversations of WhatsApp and also talk about right to privacy at the same time?
Not really, because if it's, supposing there's a very serious criminal conspiracy going on, it may be a huge financial scam that's happening, or there may be targeting of women, or there's some serious offense that's taking place. Now somebody is entitled to investigate. So apart from other material, that they can investigate. They may also realize that there is some conversation on WhatsApp, right, which is available. So then what you do is they go to court. They then tell the court that this is what we want. Now, since WhatsApp doesn't have that information, because WhatsApp doesn't collect that information, right? Whatever information that is available, WhatsApp will give and should give. But it's nothing to do with right to privacy.
But again, isn't that like the beauty and curse of technology? It's like...
It's always true, no? Why should you produce electricity? Right? You can have the atom bomb, no? So every technology has a positive and has a negative. The question is how you use it, how much you're allowed to use it, and what manner you should use it, protecting people's rights. So that's a constant attrition going on between the interest of the state and the interest of the individual. And courts try and balance both, as they should. Yes?
Yes, sir. Maybe just an additional comment to the same topic relating
sure.
to this. In light, let's say, of the ongoing WhatsApp case as well, I think WhatsApp prominently gave a prominent statement relating to how, if at all, they were to forfeit their end-to-end encryption feature, they would then have to literally pack up their bags and then leave India. My question is, I mean, India's goal for economic development and growth, I think the Vision 2047 as well, Viksit Bharat, and I think much of that is anchored on technology and digitalization as a whole. So my question is, would it not set precedent for any future FDIs, particularly in the technology sector? And from your opinion, how does that work globally as a whole as well?
Well, you must understand that India is such a market that everybody wants to enter here. It's difficult to enter China. And the market in the European countries, even the African countries, is not yet mature enough. Of course, Europe it is, but it's not a huge market, right? So everybody wants to come to India. So every private entity would love to be in India, right? Because there's huge possibilities of profit. Now, on the other hand, if you take away the encryption, right, WhatsApp says our unique character will be lost. And then we'd be like any other platform of that nature. So I don't think even the government would like to do that. So government is talking about the WhatsApp providing information in certain situations. For example, rape, right? Pornography in respect to the girl child, which is also banned in the United States. It's also banned here. So actually, we had a court case going on where I appeared for WhatsApp. And we have agreed that in certain situations, whatever information we have, we will provide for. But WhatsApp, by and large, doesn't keep any information because it's end-to-end encrypted. So therefore, despite everything, the foreign entities will want to be here, would not want to go away. It will have no impact, and it will not result in exodus of FDI as you might think. Remember, the history of the world is the history of exploitation, right? Commercial exploitation, right? The colonial powers did it. The colonial powers, I wouldn't call them colonial powers, but the private colonial powers continue to do it. Okay.
Sir, first of all, heartiest congratulations for being appointed as the President of Supreme Court Bar Association. Elected, yes, sir. Sir, my question is that, like, we are budding lawyers, or maybe like we are working as interns in different law firms. So, sir, like, there is no such provision for us, like any minimum wage provision for us. So, sir, like, being the four-time president, what do you think that bar can do in this particular thing?
No, I think that interns should be entitled to some form of stipend. So I've seen two kinds of interns. Interns who come to office and do it because they want to be associated with a particular name, right? They're not so much concerned about the inputs and their work while they are interning. So they have a different agenda. Then there are interns who are serious about their work, who come and work. So I think that yes, they should be entitled to a stipend, but quite frankly, if somebody asked me for it, I'd give it. I have no problems doing that. I can't talk about others.
Hello, sir. Hearty congratulations on being elected.
Thank you.
Also, I want to thank you on behalf of Kashmir for fighting for our cause. It means a lot that someone is representing Kashmir in the Supreme Court, whether it be Article 370. So my question pertains to the navigation of delicate balance between religious freedom and state neutrality, as you have been an advocate for secularism. What policies would you advocate to ensure equal rights for all citizens regardless of the religion?
See, look, again, there are two questions in one there. One is Article 370. As far as Article 370 is concerned, it's not for or against somebody. You know, when we stand in court as lawyers, we stand for our client, right? And in this context, I stood for the interpretation of Article 370 of the Constitution. The government decided to abrogate it. I thought that the procedure resulting in the application was unconstitutional, and that's what I argued. We stand for all people who we stand for. He may be from Kashmir, he may be from Kanyakumari, he may be from Bihar, or she may be from Madhya Pradesh, she may be from Assam, she may be from Manipur. We stand for a cause, and I stood for the cause of not abrogating 370 in the manner that they did. There may be a way of doing it, but what the government did, according to me, was that they adopted a wrong procedure for what they did, right? So that's the answer to your first question. The second question was on equality, right? Now, as far as secularism is concerned, I think the more appropriate expression to use is inclusiveness. Right? If you look at our country and you read the Constitution of India, you will find that there are protections for every segment of society. Right? You have Articles 25, 26 for religious freedom. You have Article 14, which must treat everybody equally. He may be a Dalit, he may be on the basis of sex. You can't discriminate against women, but you can discriminate for women, right? So whether it's the Dalit community or the backward community, there are special provisions of the Constitution. The reason for this, for example, reservation, is that for years they have been at the bottom end of the social strata. So they need to be empowered through education and through other means. So therefore there is what is called affirmative action in the form of constitutional reservations. But the intent is to ensure equality. Ultimately, it's equality of opportunity. Per se, there is no such thing as equality. You're different from him, he is different from her, your qualities are different, your mind is different, you think differently, you come from different backgrounds. So therefore, there is no, from a pure definitional standpoint, there is no such concept of equality. But when you talk about Article 14, the state must treat you equally. But how does the state treat you equally? It treats you equally by trying to take measures to ensure that there is equality of opportunity. In other words, you should be entitled to go to school, she should be entitled to go to school. What happens after that? And she should get probably the same kind of quality of education. What happens after that are your personal attributes. You may outshine her, she may outshine you. So there is otherwise no such. For example, what is discrimination? You can't define discrimination. You can't define equality. You can't define public interest. None of these concepts can be defined. It's impossible to define them, right? You can't define sovereignty of the state. You say somebody, you are violating the sovereignty of the state. What do you mean by that? If I, for example, in my right to free speech, attack a particular dispensation, and they sort of use UAPA against me, right? And they say the reason is that what I said was against public interest, what I said is against the sovereignty of India and stuff like that. Now, what do you mean by that? So ultimately, it's the court which looks into the fact, analyzes the facts, applies the law in a reasonable manner, and comes to the conclusion whether or not, right, there is an infringement of my right, or whether in fact I am saying something which should not be said. So therefore, it's impossible really to define these concepts. But by and large, the courts are there as the sentinels who will protect our freedoms. And by and large, the history of this country has shown that they have protected. Of course, there have been blips in the history of our country also.
नमस्कार सर मेरा नाम विश्वजीत साहू है मैं देशबंधु महाविद्यालय दिल्ली विश्वविद्यालय से आता हूँ पॉलिटिकल साइंस का स्टूडेंट हूँ सर मेरा सवाल यूएपीए कानून के तहत है जैसे कि हमने वर्तमान के समय में देखा है भीमा कोरेगांव के मामले में हो या आपने रिसेंटली जैसे उमर खालिद के केस में आपका जो पिटिशन था आपने विड्रॉ कर लिया आफ्टर इतने सारे डेट्स मिलने के डेट्स बदलते रहे तो ऐसे समय में जहाँ पे एक्विटल रेट इतना कम है इस कानून में तब सुप्रीम कोर्ट का कहना कि जेल इज़ द रूल एंड बेल इज़ द एक्सेप्शन इन यूएपीए आपको कितना दूर तक वो सही लगता है इस कानून में?
मैं समझता हूँ कि जेल इज़ द रूल और बेल इज़ एन एक्सेप्शन कानून के हिसाब से मुझे नहीं लगता वो सही है। एक्चुअली कोई ऐसा प्रावधान रखा नहीं जाता कि आदमी को गिरफ्तार किस लिए किया जाता है, हिरासत में क्यों लिया जाता है, क्योंकि लगभग इन्वेस्टिगेशन अभी चालू नहीं हुई, हमें इन्वेस्टिगेशन करना चाहिए इसलिए हिरासत में रखना चाहिए और कोड ऑफ क्रिमिनल प्रोसीजर में प्रावधान है कि पुलिस कस्टडी 14 दिन से ज़्यादा हो नहीं सकती, अब उसको बढ़ा दिया गया है। और अगर इन्वेस्टिगेशन जब पूरी हो जाए तो मेरे हिसाब से जिसको भी गिरफ्तार किया गया, जिसको भी हिरासत में लिया गया उसको बेल मिलनी चाहिए, लेकिन अक्सर नहीं होता और ख़ास तौर पे जो नीचे वाली अदालतें हैं, मैजिस्ट्रेट लेवल पे अदालतें हैं, डिस्ट्रिक्ट लेवल पे अदालतें हैं, सेशंस कोर्ट्स हैं, वो बेल नहीं देते। और क्यों नहीं देते इसका जवाब मुझे आज तक नहीं मिला। अगर आप हाई कोर्ट भी चले जाओ तो अक्सर वहाँ भी बेल नहीं मिलती और सुप्रीम कोर्ट भी चले जाओ तो वहाँ भी ज़्यादा केसेस में बेल नहीं मिलती। तो बड़ा हम बहस कर रहे हैं, प्रयास हो रहा है कि इस कानून को बदला जाए, मतलब कि अदालतों के नज़रियों को बदला जाए। कानून तो बदल नहीं सकता, कानून तो वैसा का वैसा है। तो अदालतों का नज़रिया बनना ये कोई आसान काम नहीं है, लेकिन वक्त में अदालतें अपना नज़रिया बदलती रहती हैं और पिछले 2-4 महीनों में ऐसी जजमेंट्स आई हैं जहां जैसे अभी न्यूज़ क्लिक का हमने बहस की तो उनको आखिर बेल मिल ही गया, इनफैक्ट बेल का अरेस्ट क्वॉश हो गया। तो ये भी एक दौर से हम गुज़र रहे हैं कि मुझे इतना तो हौसला है कि आने वाले दिनों में बेल रूल रहेगा और जेल एक्सेप्शन रहेगा।
गुड इवनिंग सर, मेरा नाम जैनिक पटेल है, मैं पारुल यूनिवर्सिटी के 3rd ईयर लॉ स्टूडेंट हूँ। सर मेरा सवाल आपके लिए आपसे ये है कि अभी फ़िलहाल सरकार ने 3 नए कानून पास किए और जो 1 जुलाई से लागू भी होंगे, तो सर आपका इस पर क्या मत है और आपकी क्या राय है सर?
एक कानून के बारे में मुझे राय देना ऐसे तो सही नहीं लगता, लेकिन जिस तरह से कानून को पारित किया गया है, मैं समझता हूँ कि इस तरह से ऐसे कानून को इस तरह से बदलना नहीं चाहिए। आप कानून में बदलाव लाना चाहते हो, संशोधन करना चाहते हो, आप कर सकते हो, लेकिन चर्चा के बाद होना चाहिए। और जो स्टेक होल्डर्स हैं इस देश में, जो स्टेक होल्डर्स अधिवक्ता लोग हैं, स्टेक होल्डर्स जजेस लोग हैं, स्टेक होल्डर्स सिविल सोसाइटी है, जब तक पूरी तरह से चर्चा के साथ फिर सेलेक्ट कमेटी को भेज के या स्टैंडिंग कमेटी को भेज के उसकी रिपोर्ट मंगा के, जब तक ऐसा नहीं हो, क्योंकि एक ऐसा बदलाव अगर लाना चाहते हो, कानून ही बदलना चाहते हो, तो निश्चित रूप से इस तरह से नहीं होना चाहिए जैसे 370 हुआ। 370 अगर वो चाहते थे तो इस तरह से करना चाहिए। हम तो पार्लियामेंट में थे, बैठे हुए थे, तुरंत पेश हुआ कि हम 370 बदलने जा रहे हैं। तो मैं समझता हूँ कि पार्लियामेंट में, और हमारा इतिहास ये कहता है कि पार्लियामेंट के ऐसे पहले नहीं होता था कि जो अहम मुद्दे हैं उसमें परिवर्तन ऐसा नहीं लाया जाता था। तो ठीक है, ये एक दौर से गुजर रहे हैं, ये भी सही हो जाएगा किसी ना किसी दिन। Yes.
So, in regards to the same thing, so of course the procedure under which the bills were passed is debatable, but also there's a lot of ambiguity in the words such as unity, integrity, and sovereignty of the nation, under which the court has immense, burden upon them to interpret this in the right ways. And also there's overlapping of several sections, such as there are separate statutory laws available for most of the sections already available in the BNS, BNSS. So this draconian laws that are brought in now, will it effectively help to the efficient judiciary in future, or?
No, I don't think, I think that's not a problem. The problem is the way the laws have been enacted. Again, I go back to the same question. What do you mean by unity and integrity of India? I mean, in the context of individual activity, like threat to the security of the state. Now, can an individual threaten the security of the state? Does he have the power to threaten the security of the state? I don't think an individual has a power to threaten. The state is so powerful today. Right? The state can actually access all the activities that you do, more or less. And with the new technology, right, if you use maps or you anything like that, you know, the state knows where you're going when you're getting into the car, where you're going to go. State can get to know, right? So there are so many ways. So I don't think individuals, unless of course you have a conspiracy, you access bombs, or you put them in a particular place, and there are in conversations that state accesses, which says that on such and such day at such and such time we'll go to this place and we will do all that, right? And so these are terrorist activities. Now those terrorist activities certainly threaten the security of the state, but unless you have proof of that, you can't say that, look, you made a speech in Bombay 3 days ago, and then something happened in Delhi 3 days thereafter. Now, what happened in Delhi was some act of violence in which 2 people were killed. But you were responsible for it because you gave a speech 3 days ago, right? Now, that's nothing to do with security. But these are the kind of, examples that I'm giving you are in fact being used for in fact, incarcerating people under UAPA, which includes students, which includes journalists, for example. Many of those cases I've done myself, where in fact, and ultimately they get released, and ultimately they are not even convicted, but they lost their liberty for so many months, so many years sometimes, and that's very sad. Therefore, courts should be cognizant of the mischief and the manner in which these laws are used to invade on the fundamental rights of people, and that's a very serious issue. And I'm sure that the courts one day or the other will address it. Yes.
Good evening, sir. I'm Om Upadhyay. I'm from Parul University. I'm a student of law. Sir, I want your views on the new Digital Data Protection Act. As when I read, I was concerned that the government can can authorize a certain data fiduciary, and that data fiduciary can process the personal data of the citizen of India. So that is concerning. So what are your views?
Well, so far this matter has not come to court. These are not matters that they are yet to be decided. But I agree entirely with you that on principle, this is something which seems to be an infraction of our fundamental rights. But the state has become so powerful that today it can access almost anything. And this is my personal opinion, I'm not saying it on behalf of anybody, the way in which mainstream media is being controlled and captured, the way in which they want content, the state wants content to be removed from the digital media, is a matter of great concern, because wherever they find that the state is being criticized, or individuals who hold responsible positions in the state are being criticized, that content should be removed, and they want to then pass a law in which they decide as to what content should be removed is something that I think is unconstitutional. But we'll battle it out when the time comes.
A very good evening, sir.
Good evening.
And everybody else. My question actually pertains to the advertising of advocacy. In your opinion, do you think advocates should be allowed to advertise themselves, or can a noble profession also be a profitable one?
Well, all professions will be profitable, and most of them are noble. But be that as it may, this is a very difficult question. In the United States, for example, many other jurisdictions, you can advertise your expertise, right? You go to America, you will find, people saying, we're experts at this and we're experts at that. But that's not happened in India so far. I don't know. I mean, it's very difficult. I think it's societal norms which determine what should be done at a particular time in the history of a country. If we give that freedom to the fraternity here, it may be misused. So I don't think it's reached that level. For example, in America, you have got ambulance chasers, right? The moment there is a tort, there is a negligence, and the possibility of damages in millions of dollars, you start advertising that, look, I will get you this, I will give you 30%, or I'll give you 70% of the damages that are awarded, and I'll get the 30%, and it's in millions of dollars. So you have to advertise yourself and say you're an expert in this area. But I do find even now on the digital platform, I do find people saying that, look, we are providing these services. I have no real views on it, no real views on it.
But a risk of misuse is a possibility for every right. So
It is. I agree with you. But this is commercial advertisement, no? This is not advertising for things. It's for commercial. It'll form in the area of commercial advertisement. Now you can't say you're the best in the field. And a normal commercial, a toothpaste advertisement, you can say I'm better than anybody else, right? But you can't say, look, you have a defect there. You can't target somebody else's product. You can advertise for yourself. That's possible. But I really don't have very strong views on it. I think it's for the association to decide how far they want to go.
Hello, sir. So my name is Monu Kumar, and I have recently completed my 12th. So I have one question. So as you are the president of Supreme Court Bar Association, and you are also MP of Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. So
I can't be both. I can't be both. At the moment, I'm in the Rajya Sabha. I was in the Lok Sabha.
So you have experienced firsthand the dynamics of Bar Association, Lok Sabha elections and Rajya Sabha elections, which are always eagerly followed by law aspirants and legal aspirants. So, unlike them, could you shed some lights on that? How people like us and legal aspirants could experience the elections and all, sir?
I don't understand
He wants to understand how the three elections are different, sir. And in your experience, what are some of the strategies?
Every election is different. Every Lok Sabha election is different. Because the nature of the polity has changed. The nature of perceptions has changed. The nature of perception of communities have changed. Right? But of course, as you know, that Lok Sabha is a direct election. The first past the post, whoever gets the maximum number of votes. Rajya Sabha is an indirect election. Right? Election to the bar, a president of the bar, is also a direct election. Right? But then the constituency is very small. But of course, you have millions voting in a Lok Sabha constituency. And as far as the Rajya Sabha is concerned, it is only the elected representatives of the state belonging to different parties who are voting. And there's a formula by which a person who gets a minimum number of votes, right, can be elected. And there is a limited number of seats that are available. So the elections are different. And every 5 years, as I said, if a political party doesn't perform very well, people's perceptions of different sections of the constituency also change. So It's difficult to say, but of course the methodology of election is the same, but the nature of election is different.
Hello sir, I am Aditi Sharma, a 11th grader at Arvachin International School. Coming to my question, sir, with the ongoing elections, we can see many of our representatives breaching rules under model of conduct, which are essentially formed to preserve the sanctity of electoral process. Sir, do you think that the non-enforceability of the model of code conduct is becoming a hurdle now for free and fair elections?
Well, free and fair elections now is a basic feature of the Constitution. It's part of the basic structure of the Constitution. Now, what do you mean by free and what do you mean by fair? These are two separate concepts. When you talk about freedom, means it should not be, you should not be persuaded by undue influence, right? Parting of money, that I'll give you 500 rupees for a vote, right? That impacts on the freedom of my right to vote. I can give you umpteen examples on that. I'll say, okay, I'll take you to my car to the polling station, right? It's not allowed under the Representation of People's Act. So bribery is not allowed. Then if you don't vote for me, Ram Lalla will punish you, right? Or some Bhagwan, Guru Nanak Ji will punish you or something like that. That's also undue influence. So freedom is something to do with your right to vote uninfluenced by considerations which are prohibited by law. So that's freedom. When you talk about fairness, it means that every political party should have a fair chance to participate in the election, an equal chance, right? Now, I'll give you an example of that. Somebody says that, look, I make a speech which is in violation of the Model Code of Conduct, and the Election Commission of India does not issue me a notice, right? Another person makes a speech, and the Election Commission of India immediately issues them a notice, right? So why should the Election Commission of India have two separate yardsticks, right, for two people violating the Model Code of Conduct, right? Similarly, with infractions on the ground, many a times you've seen, and I've seen with my own eyes, people or communities not being allowed to vote through the use of police force. And the Election Commission of India really doesn't take any action. That impacts on the fairness of the election. People are threatened that if you go to vote, then we'll do something to you. That impacts on the fairness of the election, right? Sometimes, and you've seen many instances where people go to vote and they don't find their names in the electoral roll at all. And they ask, but I am resident here, I've got my ration card, I've got my voter ID, I've got my Aadhaar card. They say, but your name has been deleted, right? So what happens? And then, of course, there are malpractices that happen within the booth where the polling station is. So that it relates to the fairness of the election. Now, the Election Commission of India is charged with the responsibility of free and fair elections. My personal feeling, and again, I don't speak on behalf of anybody, is that responsibility is not being discharged in the manner that is constitutionally the Election Commission is obliged to discharge. But I may be wrong, but that's my own perception.
So the events that took place few months back, especially the arrest of AAP leaders by the ED. So AAP leaders by the ED, the arrest of AAP leaders.
Okay.
So
I thought आप मेरे आप की बात कर रहे हैं.
So sir, what do you feel? The Enforcement Directorate is still an independent body, or has it completely become the puppet of the government?
See, for young minds, for me to answer that question, I don't want to influence you. But I made some public statements in this regard, and I feel that the enforcement directed under the PMLA, that's the Prevention of Money Laundering Act, is actually misusing its powers, which is impacting fairness of the election process. Because the only targets of the enforcement directorate are people who are leaders of the opposition or people who belong to the opposition. And many of them against whom allegations have been made by the establishment and by the ruling party, they, after joining that very party, all right, after defecting from the other party, come and join the BJP, and they hold public offices, and then all the allegations against them like vanish in thin air. Nobody proceeds against it. So I think the ED, so far as I understand it, and it's again my own personal perception, I think is being blatantly misused for political ends. And I hope one day that the government will rein in the ED, but I don't think that there is any possibility of that, at least during the course of this election. But it's unfortunate. But ED is not the only agency which is being misused. The CBI too has been misused, but the ED has far greater powers, because while the CBI's powers are restrained by the fact that that under the Delhi Special Police Establishment Act, there are provisions to say that you cannot enter a state without the consent of the state. No such inhibition is in the way of the Enforcement Directorate. So they can actually go into the state, which they do, and then they start, investigating bureaucrats. They start investigating, others. But of course, that doesn't mean that in every case the ED is being intransigent. Maybe in some cases there may be some truth to it also, but even truth, investigation of truth should be evenly used.
Thank you so much, sir. So in conclusion, we had a fun segment prepared from all of us. We had a rapid fire wherein we'll tell you a word and you can tell us what's the first thing that comes to your mind when you hear the word.
Okay, you're getting to be a journalist, huh? A lawyer journalist.
Right. So keeping it that way, now first word is the Constitution of India.
Oh my God, I have a passion for it.
Okay. Favorite food?
My own food, Punjabi.
Okay, then. Poetry?
Every morning.
Favorite case law of all time?
Ramaswamy, impeachment of Ramaswamy.
Youth?
You.
And India?
Me and you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you for taking out your time. And
Pleasure. Lovely to be with young children. Remember, I started my career as a teacher in Delhi University. I taught at Hindu College and I taught history. And then, of course, I joined the profession of law and became an accidental politician.
Hello sir, my name is Mahesh Sharma. I am a third year law student at Parul University. सर मैं ये जानना चाहता हूँ कि आजकल हम ये देखते हैं कि जुडिशरी बाहर की जो आवाज़ है रिलीजियस मैटर पे या माइनॉरिटी मैटर्स पे इन्फ्लुएंस दिखती है कि आउटर वॉइस से इन्फ्लुएंस है, तो उसमें आप अपना क्या पक्ष रखना चाहेंगे?
देखिए, जो न्यायाधीश वहाँ बैठे हुए हैं सर्वोच्च न्यायालय में, तो निश्चित रूप से हम भी देखो, हम भी एक नागरिक हैं, तो हम सुबह अखबार पढ़ते हैं तो हमें भी लगता है कि गलत हो रहा है या सही हो रहा है। तो सबसे ज़्यादा जिम्मेदारी पत्रकार की होती है कि जो न्यूज़ वो डिसेमिनेट करता है, जो लिखता है, या टीवी पे जो बोलता है, जो खबर देता है, सबसे अहम तो जिम्मेदारी उसकी है कि वो प्रयास करे कि सही खबर हो या खबर एक तरफिया ना हो। तो हम जो देख रहे हैं कि हर खबर आजकल एक तरफिया होती है, ख़ास तौर पे मेन स्ट्रीम मीडिया पे। हाँ, तो इसलिए आज के दिन लोग मेन स्ट्रीम मीडिया देख ही नहीं रहे। आप लोग मोस्ट ऑफ ऑल यूट्यूब या बाकी इंफॉर्मेशन चैनल्स देख रहे हैं। तो उसमें क्या होता है कि एक जज भी तो एक नागरिक है, तो उसको भी कई सालों में अगर एक तरफिया न्यूज़ वो सुनेगा तो निश्चित रूप से उस पर भी प्रभाव पड़ेगा, और वो भी फिर फैसला उसी आधार पे देगा। तो लेकिन ये भी बात सही है कि न्यायाधीश को ये भी सोचना चाहिए कि इंसाफ का पल्ला एक तरफा नहीं होना चाहिए, भारी नहीं पड़ना चाहिए। तो हर न्यायाधीश के ऊपर ये जिम्मेदारी रहती है। कुछ जिम्मेदारी बड़ी अच्छी तरह से निभाते हैं, कुछ नहीं भी निभाते। तो ये तो चलता रहता है।
थैंक यू सर।
इसके बारे में हमें क्या कहना?
Hi sir, I am Disha Singh, first year BLLB student at ILS Law College Pune. Also serve as senior volunteer at the organization IMAN. And my friends here have been asking a lot of political and legal questions, and they have covered almost all the topics. So my question is related to coming as a law student. We all know you have been an exceptional lawyer, exceptional politician. Along with that, you have also composed lyrics, which A.R. Rahman sir has turned it into an album and other song. And you have penned 2 songs, Tere Bin and one other. So how do you think, how do you navigate your time? Because being exceptional in so many fields, time navigation, as currently students, or we call as Gen Zs, we have become procrastinators, a big procrastinator, and social media is our biggest distraction, sadly. Also, somewhere we are empowered by social media. So time navigation is the question which a senior and an expert like you, if you can guide us.
Well, it all depends on your, it's what you want to do in life. Most of the time, about 2-3 hours in our life or 4 hours in a day are wasted. Wasted in the sense कि चलो चलते हैं, right? वो बुरी बात नहीं है, वो भी अच्छी बात है. After all, you must know the world, you must experience the world to absorb knowledge. That's also a great way of absorbing knowledge. But you have to use your time, and if you decide to do something, right, you must do it instead of procrastinate, right? And so it's your ability to commit to do things that you love doing, right? Most of the things sometimes we do which we don't love doing. वो जिम्मेदारी निभानी पड़ती है, कहीं जाना पड़ता है. अच्छा, वैसे ही हम चले जाते हैं, चलो आज शाम बैठते हैं, गपशप करते हैं, बतियाते हैं, as they say in Bihari. But this is something that's individual. You have to manage it. I sleep about 6 hours a day, 6.5 hours a day. That's enough. And I try not to waste my time. And a lot of people actually let time pass away because it never comes back. That moment that is just finished will never come back. So if you look at life like that, try and use each moment, right, to empower yourself and to your advantage. So I've been able to do this despite the fact that I've been quite busy. But of course, the other thing you must do is you must decide how much you want to do. For example, if I were to say, I'll only do law because I want to earn so much money, right? Then I won't be able to do the other things. So therefore, your priorities in life are also important. How much money do you want to make? Not necessary to make too much. Your needs are, I mean, take me for example, what is it that at this age, at 76, I can't eat too much. So, no need to earn that much money to have simple food at home, right? I don't want to, dress myself up every day to go out. I don't go out. I would say that if I were to count in a year, on number of evenings I go out, it'd be less than 15 or 20. Most of the time I spend working, either law or poetry or writing articles for newspapers or reading to empower myself, or of course listening to YouTube occasionally, or thinking about things. Why am I here? Why is this journey relevant for me? Why is this universe the way it is? What does it mean for me to be here? As I walk along, why should I hurt anybody? If I have a dialogue with a friend, why should I say something that hurts him, right? If somebody is hurt, why should I not go and help him? Because that moment will never come back to you, right? Essentially, if you look at animals, look at the animal world, an animal will never attack you unless it's really hungry. It let people graze. The herons will graze, the antelopes will graze, they let them be. But of course, when the lion is hungry, then of course it will attack. But if it's fed, it won't attack. How is it that we, even when you're not hungry, kill people? Why is it that we attack people even when you don't need to attack them? So if we can't even listen and see the animal world and learn some lessons from them, obviously then we are acting worse than animals. And therefore you must think about it in this journey. Why should you act like animals? Why should you hurt anybody? And if you really, this is one of the things, I have a passion for animals. That's the other passion I have. That I actually watch. See, a weak animal can never attack a strong animal. It's the strong who attacks the weak. In the animal world, right? Here, it's different. You know, you have weapons. You may be weak, but you have a weapon. You can attack people. So we must learn from the animal world. And look at, if you go to a garden and you see the different, actually, have you ever noticed that if you are driving a car in a mountain, you will have thousands of shades of green. You never find one shade of green. Thousands of shades. Have you noticed it ever? So even green has thousands of shades. Here we want to make it one nation, one color. Why should we want to do that? The garden of life has 1,000 shades. And they all live together. Right? The bird sits on a tree, right? It goes to a flower. The bee goes to a flower. And they share everything. That's what life is all about. Sharing. And yet we human beings don't want to share. And that's the question that always I ask myself. Why is that? It's because we are hungry for power, for dominance, for controlling people. And that's the bane of education in our country, that our parents control our lives. कि आपको ये करना है, आपको ये करना है, आपको engineer बनना है, आपको वकील बनना है. Why should they tell us? You were born to be free, but you are enslaved by others. So please cherish that freedom that you have and live by life in your own terms. And let me give you one piece of advice. Never do anything that you don't enjoy doing. If you find that you're in a job and you're unhappy, walk out. Because life, this opportunity will never come back to you. Right? You are meant to be happy as long as you live. And the pity of this world is that millions of people are unhappy because they don't have a chance to be happy. It's your duty to give them a chance. Okay? Thank you.
Hello sir, my name is Pooja and I'm a first year student from Delhi University. My question to you is that during Mrs. Indira Gandhi's time, during Mrs. Indira Gandhi's time, her elections were disqualified by the Allahabad High Court basis the malpractices in, the poll violations and everything. Do you think in today's day and age, our politicians' elections can also be disqualified, seeing the recent cases that have come up?
Well, that all depends on a case and in a court of law. What are the allegations? As long as the judicial system works in a fashion in which it is supposed to work, you will have disqualifications. And people have been disqualified. But take, for example, a case where somebody is convicted for defamation and loses his seat, right? And sometimes I've seen many instances of false cases being foisted on people, and they're losing their parliamentary seat. And ultimately, they win their case. I've known of such cases. So the system is today being misused by the politician, right? And that's actually causing a lot of concern, and impacts on the future of our democracy. That's a matter also of great concern.
Thank you, sir.
Those who have not asked, people who have asked, there's no need.
Thank you, sir.
That's a repeat, but it doesn't matter.
Initially, I had not gotten the chance to introduce myself. My name is Wilfred Mukau. I'm from Zimbabwe, and I'm doing my LLM at Power University in Gujarat.
Okay.
And I think my question just derives from what she also just asked. And maybe simply put, one of the fundamentals of the constitutional morality and the rule of law is the separation of powers. And in light of the developments that have happened, are they still separate? Or do we need to go back to the foundation once more and maybe put a custodian who then ensures that these powers are actually kept in check and separate?
But custodians are also human beings, no?
Right.
So how do you repose faith in a custodian when he is as much of a human being as you and me, and as much, possibility of being influenced? But the question that you asked regarding separation of powers, actually what I'm finding today, what do you mean by separation of powers? Parliament is separate from the executive. Executive is answerable to Parliament. Laws are, the laws are answerable. The validity of the laws are tested by the judiciary. This is separation of powers. But with the massive majorities people have, there is no difference between Parliament and the executive. Because if they are majority in Parliament, right, they can pass any law they wish to pass, constitutional or not. So that separation in the Westminster model, that separation of powers nowadays, if you've got massive majority, it doesn't work at all. That's why they ride roughshod. That's why you have laws which are not debated. Laws are passed without debate. Laws are passed without sending it to committees, to standing committees, select committees of Parliament, without discussion, without input of key stakeholders of society. That's happening today because of absolute majorities that political parties enjoy. But that's very dangerous for democracy. And we've seen democracy being threatened because of that. How do you correct that? Well, I think that you have to think out of the box. But if you ask me, the only way to correct is to have a very strong, independent judiciary. Wherever the judiciary finds that there is misuse of authority, the judiciary should intervene. But then there are some areas judiciary cannot intervene. For example, in the internal procedures of Parliament, judiciary cannot intervene. If I am not allowed to speak in Parliament, and if my mic is shut while I'm speaking, the judiciary has no role to play because Parliament, because of separation of powers, Parliament is sovereign and the Speaker controls the procedures of the House. And the Speaker's ruling cannot be challenged in a court of law as long as it relates to proceedings in the House. The moment it impacts outside the House, you can go to court. So therefore, these are very, very, very highly serious constitutional issues. And I think as society evolves, we'll find solutions for them. Like appointment of judges, there is a whole controversy going on today. Is the collegium system working? Is it not working? Was the previous system good? Or should we go back to the previous system of appointment by the executive? That was, according to me, terrible. The collegium system is also pretty bad. Now, how do you work out a reasonable, objective system of appointing independent judges? You have a judge of the Bengal High Court, of the Calcutta High Court, right, who is now fighting an election on a BJP ticket, who has said all kinds of, spewed venom and said very, very unparliamentary things about a leader of a particular party. And all that election commission has done is to issue a notice to him. By the time he'll reply, the election will be over. Right? And that very judge was sitting in court passing such absurd orders, obviously in tandem with the interests of the BJP. So if you have such members in the judiciary who do this, what do you do about it? Ultimately, if I am president of the bar and I don't look after the interests of the bar, why did I hold that position? If I am a judge and I don't do justice, why am I a judge? If I am a member of the legislature and don't ask questions of the party, even if I am a member of that party, why am I there? Right? And if the Prime Minister or the President or whatever, if they don't discharge functions in accordance with their responsibilities, why are they there? So each individual, whether you are a son or a father or a teacher or a student, you have to, in the role that you play, discharge your responsibilities consistent with the station which you are occupying. Right? And that depends on each one of us. So each one of us has a conscience. At the end of the day, we know what we did was right and what we did was wrong. But we forget what we did was wrong. because we continue to do it. So that depends on you, each one of you.
Hello sir, I'm Garima Wadhwani. I pursued Bachelor's of Management Studies in Jai Hind College, Mumbai. So my question is just a follow-up question on our previous discussion. Nowadays we see a lot of bail cases raised, in Supreme Court, bail cases forwarded to the Supreme Court, wherein the main main niche is to work on the fundamental rights of people, to work related to that cases. So is there any reason why these cases are being forwarded from High Court and District Courts to the Supreme Court? Like, are there any factors influencing these things, and how, as a country, these can be reduced? That's my question.
Well,
and how can we reduce the?
I've practiced here for 50 years now in the Supreme Court itself. Please sit down. And I know for a fact that today the nature of litigation is that most cases that come to court are either conflicts of a commercial nature, right? The corporate sector really has a large space in the judicial system, especially in the Supreme Court. The rest is excesses of executive power, excess of use of power by the executive, and the use of investigating agencies in arresting people, which also reach the Supreme Court. They reach the Supreme Court because people don't get justice both at the sessions level and at the High Court level. So they have to go to Supreme Court because there's a right under Article 136 of the Constitution for special leave to appeal. So those are the kind of cases. There are very few civil cases now reaching. And because Supreme Court is situated in the north, in Delhi, a lot of these cases are coming from territories around Delhi, because people can access Delhi much easier. You find very few people coming from far-off places. They don't have the financial wherewithal to reach Delhi. Expenses are very high when you hire lawyers in Delhi, especially senior lawyers. Right? Even otherwise, to come to Delhi, you have to stay at a place, you have to bring somebody with you, you have to contact a lawyer, you have to brief the counsel. This takes a long time. Right, and hearings don't end in one, cases don't end in one hearing. There are many hearings. People can't afford it. So most of the causes that are just go a-begging. They never reach court. And those who have the wherewithal and the financial clout are occupying the space of the court. That's the sad part.
Thank you so much. You
Thank you.
managed to address all of our queries.
Thank you.